One of the truly amazing things that I found in collecting is how much stuff you can stuff into a closet. This is one of the closets where I keep some of my 12-inch items. There's everything from vehicles and figures. On the left-hand side there you'll see boxes where I put the vintage 12-inch figures. And that goes, it's double deep in there. I don't know, where are we? We're in the kitchen. We've just pulled the stuff, my son and Chad and a friend of mine, we just pulled the stuff out of the closet that we were just in. And this is what was in there. This is some of what was in there anyway. Here we have figures from Spain, two here they're both from England. And then various card backs from around the world with mostly carded accessories. On this side over here we have figures from, on this side here is Argentina, actually Uruguay at the very end, then Argentina. Again, some various card backs. There's, from Japan and from Italy, from Argentina, from the US. That one, the Group Action Joe, of course, is from France. Here, one of the neat things about the international figures, there's an awful lot of overlap of uniforms from one country to another, as well as that a lot of them have their exclusive uniforms. One of the overlap uniforms that occurred in many of the different nations was the British soldier. So, for instance, that's the British soldier uniform on a Japanese figure. There's one on an English figure. There's a U.S. figure on an Australian figure, on a French figure. And each of the British uniforms, while basically the same, they have a lot of differences among them. It's really kind of a neat variation hunt to look for. Over here, we have just some more items that we pulled out of the closet. It's just sort of a random sampling of different vehicles and, well, actually mostly here are vehicles and play sets. The box figures are not in this setup. We might be able to get to those later. But this is from Japan, this is from Germany, this is from the US. These are actually kind of interesting for the 3 3/4 inch collector, because although these are 12-inch vehicles, these are, they turn into their backpack, action backpacks. So here you have, here's the sail boat in the backpack form, and here it is in its vehicle form. And the 12-inch Adventure Joes wore these on their back. Here's the same thing. Here's a little the car, and here it is in its backpack form. But they strap it onto the back, and then here it is in its vehicle form. And so the action backpacks from the Aire series were influenced by these, obviously, very definitely, in fact. This one here is a British space, both of these are British space vehicles from the Action Man line. And over here, of course, we have the iconic basic yellow helicopter. And what I did was I put the new club version of it that just came out very recently next to it, just for the fun of it, because I like to see them both together, and also the ATV as well. This is a $6 million man vehicle. The mold for this vehicle was reused by Palitoy. Can you pan on that one there? And using the exact same mold. And then it was also reused, but with pretty much the same colors in Mexico. Aventureros de Acción, Action Adventurers, which is the G.I.JOE brand in Mexico. It was the first Hombres de Acción, and then it changed to I don't speak Spanish well enough. Anyway, Action Adventures in Spanish. Here we have Mexican figures. Some of them have just absolutely astonishingly wonderful uniforms. I really, really love these. Some of you who are familiar with the US line will notice some really interesting variations. This soccer player, of course we didn't have soccer players in the US line, but Mexico put out several different soccer players because they were hosting the World Cup at that time. This is an Action Man Gargon monster. In the US, under G.I. Joe, it was released for Super Joe, for the 7-inch figures, and it was called Terron. But over in England, Palitoy decided to release it for its 12-inch line to give them some more enemies to fight. This Stratos vehicle, this was released both in Britain and in France. Palitoy joined up with Miro Meccano in France to distribute Action Man figures and vehicles. And Miro Meccano is the same company that makes erector type sets, metal sets. So this vehicle actually is made out of metal and not plastic, and it's actually a really neat sci-fi vehicle. And it actually goes. It's battery operated. And here we have some bodies, just to show that the body construction and the evolution of them in different countries. These right here, what I did was I made nation tags for them, so that way it's nice and easy for me to remember which ones are which, because my memory is going. Anyway, so these guys here, these are obviously from the U.S. There are lots of variations of the painted head figure, but these are just sort of the basic changes. And then here you have the ones from Canada, which are very, very much the same as the U.S. one. Mainly the imprint on the back says Canada. These are from the U.K., the painted head, then the fuzz head, and then their new style body. And then this is France. Actually looks like France and Italy. This one here was used in France, Italy, and Germany. This is from Argentina. These are both from Brazil. These are Mexican figures. Mexican figures were really very different than their U.S. counterparts, in that I didn't show you over there. I forgot to put out a U.S. talking figure, and this is the chest from the talking figure that they used in Mexico. However, there's no talking mechanism in these two, and also their heads are very, very different than the usual G.I. Joe head. In fact, some people call these the drunk G.I. Joes because they have a sort of an odd look to them. And then these are from Spain, and the figures from Spain are some of my favorites because they're the most robust. I don't think I've ever found a broken figure from Spain, whereas all the other figures I find broken all the time. Actually, that's not true. The Japanese ones are also very robust. This is the true new G.I. Joe. This is the one from the 70s, whereas this is also a new G.I. Joe. This is a Combat Joe, and this is this I really consider modern. This I consider vintage. I shouldn't really say modern. It's sort of in between. It's a transition between the modern and the vintage. And then this is the Cyber Joe, which was the robot line made by Takara using the exact same body mold as the original Joes. They even say Hasbro on the back. Capture Copter, the black helicopters over there that were based on basically based on that yellow all-purpose helicopter. This costume Godzilla here is one of my favorite pieces. It was actually the first 12-inch Joe piece that I ever bought, actually long before I even considered doing a book on G.I. Joe. The reason I bought it was because I also collect Godzilla items, and it's a wonderful, wonderful soft rubber Godzilla suit that fits over a 12-inch Joe. It's later than most of the items you see here in this kitchen. Almost everything else, in fact, everything else is from the 60s and the 70s. This actually came out in the very early 80s, and it is not a true vintage G.I. Joe in the normal sense. It's not a new G.I. Joe. It is a Combat Joe, which is sort of an interim transition figure between the vintage figures and the modern figures. I have been dealing with 3 3/4 inch Joes for the past couple of years, and I haven't really gotten these out, and I've forgotten a lot. I need to go back and refresh my memory. These right here are from Italy. I thought I had my Australian guys out here too. This one's from Belgium. Again, more items from around the world. Here on this table are in Europe, and really only in Europe, G.I. Joe got into the Wild West. A sheriff figure, and here's an Indian, and where are some others? Well, I really didn't get all of them out. I wonder where I put the other ones. Also I said just Europe. That's not true. Argentina also had cowboys. There's the Argentina cowboy figure. And he comes with 2 or 3 different plaid shirts, so you can get variations on that cowboy. Oh, and then this is the training tower. And the training tower is sort of, again, one of those iconic pieces that all you got to do is see it and you know 12-inch G.I. Joes. This was very, very sturdy, very well made, really nice concept. It had a winch that you could pull out and then attach to another area in your living room or whatever, and have your Joes hang from it and have them climb up it. And some people would buy more than one and actually put rope from one to another. It's just a really, really cool vehicle. I mean, not vehicle playset. I really, really like it. And I guess over here, this is the Sea Sled. This is the original Sea Sled. It's actually the first vehicle made by G.I. Joe that wasn't specifically military. I believe it came out in 1967, and the designer mentioned in one of the videos that I watched that he designed it based on something he saw in a James Bond movie. And so really this vehicle really marks the moment when G.I. Joe went from a purely military line into fantasy. And of course that fantasy went first to outer space and different kinds of adventures, went into back in time, into the cowboys and Indians. It went kind of everywhere, which is in my opinion, one of the really nice things about G.I. Joe is it really, really embraces so much of life's experiences, and it lets the child really use their imagination and go wherever it is that they want to go. This vehicle here is a later version of it. It's obviously it says the Adventure Team, and then this one here is Comandos Emação. This is the Brazilian version, and the Brazilian version came with the brown Stingray, which is the only place you can get the brown Stingray. The U.S. Stingray is gray.